Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Julie, and I organize webinars for the Claire Booth Luce Center for Conservative Women. I am so happy for you to join us this afternoon with our guest speaker, Kristan Hawkins. Here at the center, our mission is to prepare women for effective leadership and to promote leading conservative women. Our materials, programs, and initiatives support ideas and efforts that are pro-America, pro-family, and support free enterprise. We encourage our supporters and students to be active ambassadors of conservative philosophy in their schools, workplaces, and communities. If you are interested in learning more about the Center for Conservative Women, I invite you to visit our website at cblwomen.org and follow us on our social media platforms. Joining us today is Kristan Hawkins. She is president of Students for Life of America, where she has built a small organization from a few dozen student groups scattered around the country to a coordinated national team serving more than 1,200 Students for Life chapters in all 50 states. Under her leadership, Students for Life exists to abolish abortion by transforming our culture through recruiting, training, and mobilizing this pro-life generation. Hawkins' expertise includes abortion, feminism, disability advocacy, and healthcare. She is a graduate of Bethany College, where she was active in the ProLife Movement. She has previously worked for the RNC and served as a presidential appointee in the George W. Bush administration. She has served on the then candidate Donald Trump's ProLife Advisory Council. He is a published author and has recently received the title, one of the 4 worst anti-abortion misinformers by Media Matters, a title of which she is very proud. She is married to Jonathan and they have 4 children. Today, she will address the current state of the pro-life movement and how to move forward for life during our politically polarized times. Please join me today welcoming Kristan Hawkins.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me. I'm so excited to be joining you from Washington, D.C. Sorry, my hair is a little tousled. We were out on the street earlier today doing a life chain in Arlington, Virginia, right on the river, with Washington, D.C. in the background, and getting lots of honks and support for the pro-life generation stance for life. And I will be marching in the March for Life with other pro-life leaders here in about 35 minutes. But I'm so excited to come live. We're here at the Museum of the Bible, getting ready to march, but I wanted to come and chat with you all today and then take some questions about the state of the pro-life movement and where I think we are in this human rights campaign. I think in every single movement, there are moments, there are decisions and choices that have to be made. And there are moments where those choices are pivotal, where you kind of reach a crossroads where you can go left or you can go right, but you can't go back. And the decision that you make and that maybe a few or small people make will determine the fate of that movement, whether that movement succeeds or fails. I think that is where we are today in the pro-life movement. We have seen incredible gains in the pro-life movement in the last 4 years. We had, the most pro-life presidential administration that was ever elected, serving here in Washington, D.C., truly being allies in this fight to end the violence of abortion. And today there are children, there are toddlers who are alive because of the policies of President Trump's administration. But now we have a different presidential administration, someone different sitting in the Oval Office. And the question before us is, do we adopt, I think, a losing mentality, a mentality of there's really nothing we can do, that everything that we've worked for in the last 4 years is going to be erased. Yesterday, Joe Biden signed into law, signed an executive order for reversing the Mexico City policy, which means now you and I will be forced to fund organizations that promote or commit abortions overseas. Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, and Kamala Harris and Joe Biden have all pledged, every single one of them have pledged that we will not have a Hyde Amendment in any future spending bills, meaning that our taxpayer dollars will be funding abortions and federal Medicaid subsidies, which will significantly increase the number of abortions. We believe the Hyde Amendment, which has been an amendment that's been added, a rider, they call it, added to all these appropriations bills since 1976, has saved over 2 million lives. And that's what we stand to lose. And so this is a significant moment for our movement. Do we just go home Do we resign ourselves to the fact that everything we work for is going to be erased and there's nothing we can do until 2022 or 2024? Or do we stand and fight? Do we stand and fight? And how do we do that? What does that really look like for us? And you know, it's interesting because every year at the March for Life, there are leaders who come from across the globe, courageous leaders who in their home countries where there is no freedom of speech, where there is no freedom of assembly, courageously stand for life. And the question they always kind of ask me, and we hear all the time, and I wish I had a more eloquent answer for them, is why? Why is the American pro-life movement different? Why do we have the March for Life, the annual pro-life march in Washington every year, which no other cause in the history of the world turns out more people every single year than the American pro-life movement? Why, despite the fact that we have some of the world's most extreme abortion laws, truly, we are in league with Canada, China, and North Korea in the extremism of abortion laws, allowing abortions to be illegal up until the moment of birth and sometimes even after. Why do we still have an active and vocal pro-life movement? Why is it anytime there's an election, abortion is always talked about? Why haven't we, why haven't we been silenced? And really the answer is not a scientific one or a very scholarly one, but the answer is because we refuse to give up, because we had grit. And because today still we refuse to be silenced, whether that's on social media or that's here in Washington, D.C., or it's on campuses, we continue to speak the truth about the violence of abortion and how the abortion industry has a predatory business cycle targeting our young people. So we can't wait, and we don't wait for the perfect political candidate or the perfect Supreme Court case or the perfect environment to do our work, to do what we know we've been called to do, which is to stand and advocate for those who have no voice. And, you know, the good news is we have momentum. And that is why you see what you see. That's why you see, for example, the Brett Kavanaugh confirmation hearings just 2 years ago for the Supreme Court. When you remember the women who were pounding at the door of the Supreme Court and losing their minds, do you all remember this fall when Judge Amy Coney Barrett was nominated to the Supreme Court and the things that were said about her and her family simply because she had the audacity to love a child that wasn't born in America, because her family had the audacity to adopt another human being and give that child a loving home? They are scared because they see the momentum. They feel the momentum that we see, that we feel. There's fewer abortion facilities that are happening today than the past 2.5 decades. We're at one of the all-time lows for the number of abortion facilities in our nation. When you look at polls tell us over and over again that the majority of Americans reject abortion. Students for Life of America released a poll this past week, where nearly 80% of Generation Z and millennials said that they agree with us that there should be common sense restrictions on abortion. Almost 80%. And that's the most liberal cohort when you do polling, right? Young people, they're supposed to be the most liberal. They're the ones who are supposed to skew all the poll results. When you look at adults, and if you do a general Americans, in general, Americans of all ages oppose abortion in all 9 months of pregnancy for whatever reason. They oppose second trimester abortion. They certainly oppose taxpayer-funded abortion, which is now in the actual platform of the Democratic National Committee. That's just abortion extremism. When you look at activism, you look at who can turn out more people and mobilize people every single year. It's the American pro-life movement. Today, we are honored to serve over 1,250 chapters in all 50 states. The fact that we trained over 100,000 young people, and yet Planned Parenthood, the billion-dollar Goliath that they are, they boast in their annual report every year that they've trained 700 kids that year. It's unbelievable. So I believe the fate of our movement actually relies on us. It's not about what's going to happen in Washington, D.C. It's about how we react to what's going on, how we adapt, how we innovate, how we pivot. I think millions of lives, the fate of millions will rest on us. And the question is, what is it that you're going to do? I believe my maker made me for great things, just like how he made you for great things. And just like my earthly father, my heavenly father does not accept excuses as to why I can't act. If you know the truth about abortion, if you know about the violent reality that goes on inside the, behind the closed doors of Planned Parenthood and other abortion facilities every single day, then you are called to action. It doesn't matter what history you have. It doesn't matter what you've learned or what you don't know. It doesn't matter, what your fears may be. You're called to play a part because you know the truth. If you know the truth about abortion, you have to act. We have to act. So that's really what I wanted to share with you today, is that the state of the pro-life movement is strong. We have momentum. We are growing larger day by day, every single day. They know this, which is why they act so crazy, which is why they're working harder than ever before, which is why they poured tens of millions of dollars into this election cycle. They know this, and they want us to feel defeat. They want us to pack up and go home. But we're at a crossroads, and we can't allow that to happen. We absolutely can't allow that to happen. We have to stand up. We have to speak out and continue to stand for life. And that's what Students for Life is going to be doing all 2021. We'll be, playing defense in Washington, D.C., creating coalitions with, blue dog Democrats from conservative states to stand up and oppose the abolition of the Hyde Amendment, to say, no, even if I, as a pro-choice person, I don't think we should pay for abortions. We can get broad consensus on that. So that's what we're going to be working on in Washington, D.C. But what's more important is what's going to be happening in our state houses. The fact that we have 27 Republican governors, the majority of state houses are led by pro-lifers. In our communities, we've got to do a better job, though, of advocating for life and advocating for life-affirming resources. Do you know the majority of people in communities have no idea that there's pregnancy resource centers, thousands of pregnancy resource centers and maternity homes that directly counter the narrative that Planned Parenthood and the abortion industry give us day after day after day. So we need to increase knowledge of these pregnancy centers in our communities. That's what we're going to be doing. We're also going to be decreasing the brand of the abortion facilities, telling neighbors, and we're actually going to be knocking door by door by door and appealing to people online to tell them about all of the dangers happening inside of their abortion facility right in their neighborhood. We're also going to be changing mind about abortion. So Students for Life has been doing polling, professional research for the past 2 years. We actually have these 2 beautiful ads we made. We actually deployed them before the election. We are averaging a 31% conversion rate when young people, 20 to 29-year-old women who don't like abortion, but that's what we can call the mushy crowd, we can change their mind on abortion and get them to say, yes, I agree, abortion is wrong. And get them kind of off of that middle road where they think is this moral high ground, which is not. It's never the moral high ground to be in the middle about human rights atrocity that's happening. So I'm excited. I'm a little scared. We have a lot of work ahead of us, but we are at crossroads, and I'm excited to take us down this new uncharted path. I think it's the future of the pro-life movement, but we're going to sprint. We're not going to walk to the finish line. We're going to sprint, get to that point where we can reverse Roe versus Wade, see the decision of abortion go back to the state, and work community by community, state by state to make abortion illegal and unthinkable. So what are your all's questions?
Thank you so much, Kristan. We have several questions, and we had got some before you even came on. Some person is asking, what do you say to people who are Christians, but they think that voting with pro-life candidates only on the pro-life issue is not wise and it's not what's best for our country? How do you respond to that?
Well, I would say I have a really hard time trusting anyone who doesn't acknowledge the science, that what is inside of a woman is a unique human being, a living human being that has a unique DNA structure, and that human being should be protected. We are called to acknowledge that every human being, as Christians, every human being is made in the image of our Maker. We know from Scripture that John the Baptist, as a late-term fetus, actually acknowledged the presence of Jesus Christ inside of his mother. So when we permit abortion, when we vote for candidates who advance the goals of the abortion industry, advance and ensure that the more lives will be saved, you're denying you're denying the humanity of the child, and you're denying that that child was made in the image of God, and that human being, that unique human being with a soul, deserves that right to life. And so I don't know, I have a hard time trusting anybody who would advocate that, say, well, I hear this sometimes of like, well, I don't like so-and-so's tweets, or I don't like how this candidate talks about this issue, or I disagree with this candidate on this policy. That's totally valid, and that's a totally valid opinion to have. In fact, we can have, and pro-life movement is actually very diverse. We can have a lot of disagreements about how to solve a lot of important policy issues of the day. But fundamentally, we must agree that an innocent human being in the womb should be protected. And that is a primary right that we all have, because it's life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness in that order.
Thank you. Another question is, do you find setting up meetings with elected officials helpful to discuss differences on abortion? Does it matter if you have young students who would actually meet with local politicians and talk about this issue? Would that be a benefit?
It absolutely is. In fact, the younger the folks who can go and do lobbying, the better, because for some reason they're conditioned, especially on Capitol Hill, they're conditioned to think when they see a young person, they're going to be liberal, that they're going to be pro-choice, that they're going to be representing some liberal, secular, progressive opinion. And it actually throws them through a loop when they find out you're pro-life. That's why we always wear pro-life generation shirts and hats, and anything we do on Capitol Hill, because we want to very quickly show members of Congress that we're here representing the majority of our generation. But I think it's very, very important. Meetings are, I think, the number one thing you can do when we're trying to get attention of our elected officials. Calls would be probably the next biggest thing you can do, generate calls into their office. And then it goes into emails and faxes. But you've got to get in front of these politicians. I mean, I have kind of a cynical view of politics, I'm sorry, but I mean, their number one job is to get reelected. And they wanted to cause, the least controversy as possible and choose the easiest path, most of them, least path of resistance, because all they want is to get reelected. And you need to show them that if they don't listen to their constituents, if they don't listen to the majority of young people, that there's going to be a reckoning, and that might mean they lose their job. That gets them to pay attention a little bit. So I think showing up often, it would be significant.
Okay, thank you. It seems that more people have become pro-life in the past decades, but why do you imagine that the left seems to have gotten louder and nastier about their pro-choice belief? We've seen the Shout Your Abortion movement and different TikTok videos like celebrating abortion. How is that happening at the same time we have more people becoming pro-life?
I know, and it seems so, when you think about it, you think, well, maybe we're not winning, maybe we're losing. But the reality is that they're scared. The day that we know is near is the day that they fear. They're very scared. You can see it in their comments and in their behaviors. We often see on campuses, or if we're at the Supreme Court, the nastiest comments. There's vile behavior that is directed towards us is done from those who are hurting individuals. Many of them have had a past abortion or abortion's decision in their life. They're wounded from that, and they're still hurting from that. And so when anyone says abortion's wrong, that hurts them, because it makes them feel like it reinforces that feeling that they had in their gut before they had that abortion, that maybe they shouldn't do that. And so they don't want to hear anyone ever like affirming that opinion, because affirming that opinion actually hurts them. And so that is why I think we see what we see, and we'll continue to see what we see, because you have women who didn't want to choose abortion, who knew what was inside of them was a unique, whole, living human being. But then they talked to a friend, talked to a boyfriend, their pastor, their mom or dad, who told them that, just get it taken care of. That's the responsible decision. And so she kind of suppressed that icky feeling in her gut. She paid Planned Parenthood to end the life of her child, all the while kind of knowing what was going on. But then she fears a day when our nation is going to reverse course to say all along what she knew, that abortion is nothing but murder for hire. And she fears that, because when that day comes, she'll have to face that. And she'll have to, seek forgiveness. She'll have to seek healing. And that's hard and it's painful. And I think that's why, we don't ever, like, in the pro-life movement, we don't ever get mad or angry at people who shout at us or curse at us or vandalize our displays, because there is a very real realization that those who act out, those who act the worst, are the ones who are hurting the worst. And we also have to minister to them that there is hope, that there is healing, that there isn't judgment. And just because they might feel like there is, we're not judging them. In fact, the pro-life movement is actually made up largely of folks who've had abortions, who've been involved in the abortion industry and have come to learn the truth.
Thank you. Why do you think that there's the image of a pro-life movement as people who only care about babies before they're born, and then they don't care anything after that, or care about the moms? And how does that image get into the mainstream media? How does that happen?
Sure. Well, I mean, that's how the abortion industry has painted us for a number of years. That's why Students for Life, we're so cautious and protective of our brand and how we're being talked about in the pro-life movement, and how they're, what the B-roll, the footage, when they're talking about abortion looks like on TV news. And anytime there's cameras, we have young, joyful young women out there taking pictures and smiling. But that's really that's how they wanted to paint us, that we're angry, old, white, religious men who our only motivation of getting up on a Saturday morning is because we want to take away a woman's rights. And we can't let them do that. We can't. And that's actually why we have to fight back. We have to fight back hard and always be countering their narrative that's out there. I sometimes get asked this question: why don't you care about so-and-so? You don't care about this group. I'm like, how do you know I don't care about that group? Just because I label myself pro-life, just because I fight to end the atrocity of abortion, does not mean I don't care about all of these other important social justice issues. It's kind of, I one time compared us, I was having a conversation with a girl at University of Miami in Ohio, and I asked her, because she was complaining, she got up and started lecturing me about how if I was so pro-life, I'd stop what I was doing advocating against abortion, and I would focus on foster care and adoption forms, which, by the way, we do. But I said, well, okay, well, then you really must hate the American Diabetes Association. And she was like, well, no. I said, well, wait a minute. American Diabetes Association isn't doing anything for people with cancer. How dare they be fundraising and doing awareness events? And then she kind of sat down. She's like, no, it's different. No, it's not different. Just like how there's American Diabetes Association, the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation, American Cancer Association, the Breast Cancer Awareness Research Institute, there's all these incredible organizations that are doing what they can to save lives, doing what they've been called to do to save lives. And that is no different than the pro-life movement. Just because I might specialize in the ending of abortion does not mean I don't care about all these things. In fact, it's actually pretty unfair to say that pro-lifers, those who oppose abortion, have to answer all of society's ills. Like, get off your butt and do something. What have you done today for the preborn, for the mothers, for those hurting in your community?
Wow, that's a really good word.
Sorry, I get asked this a lot.
No, I like that. But that is the kind of questions that I've personally been getting recently in different church groups, sad to say. And so it's been interesting. So one person is asking, on a practical note for a young person, if they're new to the pro-life movement, how do they get resources? Do you have resources on your website that are available that they could print and take with them and to learn? Is that the best way to get them?
Yeah, you can go to studentsforlifehq.com or just studentsforlife.org. We actually, on our website, you can sign up, give us your email, and you can actually email your regional coordinator. In fact, you can just email your regional coordinator right now. We have full-time staff throughout the country. It's just your state at studentsforlife.org. They will help you start a group, host a pro-life event. If you have a Claire Booth Lewis group or a YAF group on your campus, I can come and speak. As you can invite me to come, or we can find another pro-life leader to come speak to your group, help you host event, brainstorm out ideas. You don't have to be like a certified Students for Life group to be involved in the pro-life movement. But I also encourage you to go to studentsforlifehq.com. That's free training. It's totally free. You sign up, and we have 5 pillars in the pro-life movement that we believe every well-rounded activist should be involved in: effective education, industry impact, shutting down abortion facilities, supportive services, helping mothers in need, rapid response, and public policy. And so we train you in all 5 of those pillars, how to get involved, and we actually train you in the best ways to make a difference. So check it out, go to studentsforlife.org, follow us on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter, all those fun places. And Students for Life HQ is our free online training portal, or just email us, yourstate@studentsforlife.org.
Okay, thank you. Someone has they said, on a more practical note, what is it like running an organization of that size, and how did you get to that place as a woman in a position of such excellent leadership?
It's exhausting. I always joke, we're going to get ready to march inside. I always joke that if I knew what I was getting myself into, I probably would have paused a little bit longer before jumping headfirst into it. It definitely didn't start out large. It started out very small, just me. But just like how I said earlier in my presentation about how we don't give up in the American Pro-Life Movement, that's what we did. We never gave up. I'm blessed to have a wonderful husband. He homeschools our 4 children. I live a very unconventional life, a lot of late nights, sometimes 20-hour days, but we make it work. And, one of the things I've learned leading Students for Life is, that whole notion is like a big thing with this generation. I can't stand it, like work-life balance. I hate that phrase. There is no such thing in work-life balance when you're an activist or when you're an entrepreneur or you're running an organization. That doesn't exist. The question is, how do you live your life so you're doing what you can and being where you need to be. Whether that's, taking a couple hours in the morning and making sure my kids have what they need and get all their medical treatments done. And then I work late. Maybe I work later at night. Being a working mom means I work a lot of weekends and nights when no one else is awake in my house. But then that way I was able to spend time with them during the day. I was able to make it work because I was committed to making it work. You have to be committed to making it work. And you have to realize it's not going to be fair. Sometimes I'll be up late, 2 a.m. working, and my husband's sleeping. And I'm like, it is so not fair. He's sleeping and I'm still working. But this is the reality of where we are. My husband is a homeschooling dad, and I'm running Students for Life of America. I would say you got to get your priorities in check. That's something that I constantly struggle with. And I say this to all of my mentorees at Students for Life, young women who want to become married, have kids, and run a pro-life ministry, is figure out, you're going to be juggling your whole life as a mom, as a working woman. You will always be juggling. Will it be fair? No, but this is what it's like. Life is like. But you've got to figure out when you're juggling what kind of balls you juggle. Which ones are rubber and which ones are glass. And you can't let those glass balls ever fall because they'll shatter. And that, what are your glass balls in your life? That's your faith, your family, your health. And then there's other balls that you might have to drop. And you might have to say, I can't deal with this right now, or I have to, assign this to someone else or delegate it. It might not get done the way I like it. I'm kind of a control freak. It may not get done the way I like it, but it's going to get done good enough, better than if I would have had to do it, better if I had to lose that time with my family. And those are your rubber balls. And I think it's a constant reprioritization. And I don't know, my only peace and quiet during the day is like the 10 minutes I'm in the shower. And so that's usually when I'm like reprioritizing my balls, right? Okay, what are the things that I have to do today that I cannot let drop? And what are the things that, if it doesn't happen, it's not going to be the end of the world. So, and if you're a control freak like me and perfectionist, then prepare. You're going to probably work a lot of late nights. And it's not going to be fair. And, everybody else gets to sleep while you're packing for vacation and taking conference calls and meal planning. But that's who we are, and I wouldn't have it any other way because I don't want to sacrifice time with my children. I don't want to sacrifice time with my family, and I definitely don't want to sacrifice the momentum we have in the pro-life movement right now to save lives.
We are all very, very appreciative of your dedication. And just for one question, and then we're done, do you have any books that you recommend young women to be reading just for inspiration or education?
Well, you need to read Saul Alinsky's Rules for Radicals. I really do. That was like one of the first books I read when I was in Washington, D.C. And I know it will make you mad, but it helps you understand the left. And I think it's So, so important. There's also another book I really like. It's called Blueprint for a Revolution. And that is I cannot pronounce the gentleman's name. He's a Slovakian, but he was one of the student leaders during the student revolution against Slobodan Milosevic and the genocide that was happening there. And it's so good because it takes some of the rules for radicals, but how young students applied it and how young students were able to, without power, without money, were able to bring down an entire dictator and a regime. And I love that because I think that's what we are often doing in the pro-life movement, that we don't have a lot of power sometimes, and we don't have a lot of money, but we're getting it done.
Well, wonderful. We really appreciate your time today. We thank you so much for all of your hard work and for how you really, really stand for life. And you are just an inspiration to all of us. So we will let you go. Thank you so much for walking today. And we hope to see you again post-COVID.
Yes, absolutely. Bye, guys. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone, for attending.